Welcome to another top 3 grand final showdown between Michu and Varn Karstein. Should be a fun one because starting off immediately, it's a Herald Hammerstorm. He's pretty sick because he brings Bane of the Dead, which is a -4 leadership debuff for undead units. They usually crumble, which doesn't matter, but it also makes them not undead anymore. Apparently, Herald Hammerstorm has solved all the issues of the Vampire Counts and the Vampire Coast, respectively, and has figured out how to turn them alive again. That means that they will rout in gameplay terms, and that can be pretty useful, because if a unit routs 3 times, they shatter completely, and in undead terms, that means that they just straight up disappear from the battlefield. Pretty terrifying, but he's very off meta because of how expensive he is. We do have a Burning Headcaster though. Chaos Sorcerer of Fire in the Woods, ready to also provide some leadership debuffs. -8 leadership from being hit. And the Vampire Coast Army coming in from Michu. It's looking pretty fun. We got double White King. Oh my goodness, look at that Burning Head though. Cleaving through one of the zombie pirates. Already, game is getting hot. But yeah, we got 2 White Kings are over here. They're going to be chilling. They're just nice constant damage. They got Scab Scrats, which they, I think, already used against these Marauders, maybe. We got nasty Moringulls about to charge in. They'll be able to do lots and lots of damage to basic infantry. And overall, both sides are kind of just mosh pitting against each other. Generally, though, I would say a mosh pit, it usually goes well for the Vampire Coast, as they have a very strong front line. But Von Karstein's engaged so quickly that these zombie pirate gunnery mobs have not actually been able to... They haven't been able to really fall back. Usually you want these guys sitting back and shooting. But a lot of them have already died. Now, this is still not the end of the world. I think there could be a lot of plays to be made. Maybe with these bombers, if they can get into position. You can see they're already pulling back, but oh, big Burning Head's going to be doing a lot of damage. Over here, we have some pushing onto this point number 1. Von Karstein sacrificing a unit of Marauders so that they can actually secure this point. If even for a little bit. But the Vampire Coast, I would say, is generally making some pretty good headway in the middle. Rally Tracker says it's in the favor of the Chaos, though, which I gotta say I don't entirely believe. A lot of the values coming from these Knights Errant, which I'm not sure if their value is tracked. Sometimes range units aren't tracked properly. But it just feels like Vampire Coast has a lot here, right? Am I wrong? I guess Chaos is saving a lot of money in reserves. But this is looking positively amazing for Coast. As long as Herald Hammerstorm doesn't, I guess, completely murder Silostra, I think Coast is pretty happy. In fact, a lot of money is in this singular unit, and Michu's kind of done the correct thing and simply ignored him. If your extremely expensive, unit is not getting a ton of value, you can pretty easily just kill off everything else they own, and once they're singled out and alone, they're not very useful. One of the main reasons why foot characters in general are not used much in domination. Still though, a Silostra pick can still be a lot of value. Of course, we have a bunch of Forsaken here at decent health who should be able to clean up a lot of these zombies. But overall, I'd say I'm a little worried for Chaos. Now, they are planning to change the tide by summoning in a very expensive unit of Pleasure Guard from the Slaanesh roster. They're going to be pretty nice. They're fast, extremely expensive, but their stat line is ludicrous. 64, 67. Each one of these is basically higher stats than your average Lord. And their charges are devastating. As you can see here, they're going to charge right through these zombies and actually go for the White King. I mean, the Gunnery White instead. They should be able to just completely murder that guy. But the problem is they have a good amount of work to get done. There's still quite a few zombies and Moringulls. I will say, pretty nice charge though. A lot of the zombies are crumbling down too. And actually, one of the units for Michu is out of position. The Lamprey's Revenge, basically the center line of their entire army, is kind of just chilling right now. The next summons will be punished, but this is not too pretty. I will say managing to rout the Lord with the gunnery white sniping is good. But now I'm a little bit worried for Coast. Silostra will be able to stay alive though, but they're gonna need to deal with Pleasure Guard. They do have a unit that's perfect for it, but they're still AFK. A little bit of a mishap. Even in the grand finals, people are gonna misplay. Some shots on the Pleasure Guard are good. They're not super tanky. A lot of expensive units don't have that much HP for the gold that you're spending, so they do generally get countered by ranged. And I think that's gonna do it. Are they gonna die? I don't know. They're getting a lot of damage on these dogs. Von Karstein's bringing in some Doom Knights to chase off the Flyers. Overall, the tussle is going. Tickets are very close. Both players need to hit 1,500 tickets to win the game. And they get 1 ticket per second for each capture point. So if this, because this is so close, if the tide of battle shifts any which way for either player, it's gonna be pretty good for them. You know, it's gonna be very hard to actually secure these points if your army is slightly smaller, and hunkering down on 1 point won't really help you because it'll just get outpaced. In fact, right now I will say this Chaos army has basically nothing. I don't know why the value tracker says it's so in favor for Chaos, but it does not feel that way. Coast has almost double the units on the battlefield. Yes, I'm aware the Doom Knights are expensive. I'm aware the Pleasure Guard are really expensive too. But the Zombie Tide is truly a menace. It's basically just beating your opponent with raw amounts of HP. Because not only will they trade very well as your units get tired trying to cycle charge all these zombies, but they also just have so much HP that you can't capture the points. Even if you are able to value trade against them, they got the same amount of capture weight as your units, and it's gonna take days to clear them out. You can see here, this is an example of just not enough oomph and too many units on the battlefield to deal with, where the Doom Knights are actually getting out traded by one of the cheapest units on the Coast roster. And over here, this is an example of capture weight problems. Pleasure Guard just cannot secure this point. Finally, Michu does remember the Lamprey's Revenge. They almost won without him, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, Chaos is getting absolutely swarmed here. The Hammer Storm is doing his best. He's trying to rout off some zombies, and he does effectively do it. You can see these guys are running for their lives. But a normal rout doesn't do that much. It's just going to do a little bit of crumbling damage. You need to rout them multiple times. Hey, there's another one, though. Hey, and he did it. He shattered the deckhands. Let's go. That's about 250 gold worth of value. He's going to need to do that 4 more times if he wants to get anywhere. And now we're looking at a triple cap situation. Vampire Coast asserting full dominance. Now this is a best of 3, and these players will be playing different factions. But we can go over general strategies here. Because triple cap does usually mean that you are going to fall behind on value. And Von Karstein is playing to that. They're consolidating their forces to maybe hammer this location. They see a little bit of weakness here, so they're using their mobility to maybe try and split the Vampire Coast apart. And they do manage to secure a point. But there's simply no way. There's no way to come back. This is way too much coast, and the Zombie Tide continues. For 250 gold, each one of these is bringing 12,000 gold onto the battlefield. Forsaken at 800 gold only bring 8,000 gold. And actually, generally, Forsaken, if they just take a normal fight against deckhands, Pound for pound, they lose. Oh, I guess these guys are 750. Regardless, pound for pound, Forsaken do lose the trade against the deckhands. And that's kind of Vampire Coast's goal here. They just want to trade one unit for one unit. And if they keep that up, they're going to maintain their lead and get the tickets. Last Hail Mary for the Vampire... not for the Vampires. Warriors of Chaos. They're going to summon their caster back as a means to maybe try and clear out some value. I guess they do manage to secure... Never mind, they didn't secure the point. Oh my goodness, UI... this is actually a UI issue. Of course, these units were trying to kill off some zombies here, but... Very deceptive. This point is not secured. And if you do not secure the point fully, you get none of the benefits of it. You need to completely control it if you want to get tickets from it. And that's going to be setting von Karstein back. Without this point, even if they do get a value lead, they're just going to lose out on tickets. Michu does win, even if they hold one capture point. And that means von Karstein is on the defensive now. They're going to have to split up their forces to secure these points, and that's definitely a very big issue. And they still don't have it. The Doom Knights even getting routed. The Hellstriders are going to get routed. And if they try to save this situation, the middle is going to fall. Lord even taking a lot of damage. Chaos Sorcerer Lord is not very good versus the Lamprey's Revenge. They simply do a lot of damage. And over here, some Hellstriders making one last Hail Mary play. But I think this is completely over. I don't even know why von Karstein's sticking with it. Well, you know, okay. I say that, you know, from the top-down perspective, being able to analyze the game fully. From a player perspective, you don't really gain anything from leaving early. And oftentimes, a lot of people feel like they're losing, but they're actually winning, and then they leave the game. You would not want to do that. And especially with a big tournament prize on the line, at least a medium one, I can see why players want to give it their all. But value tracking, Lamprey's Revenge, paid for themselves despite being AFK for most of the game. Gunnery Whites, pretty good, basically paid for themselves. Silostra, very meta, Amazing Lord, and Herald Hammerstorm. I think we know why the Warriors of Chaos were not able to win today. Unfortunately, he is a bit of a meme. Sad to see him go. Pleasure Guard did surprisingly well, but yeah, if you're not fully optimized versus the Vampire Coast, this tends to happen. But this is the best of 3, and the players have swapped places in terms of who's playing Undead. Vampire counts for Michu. Wait, no. No, Michu was playing Coast last time. My bad. My bad. No swibbity swaps. Seems like they do enjoy playing a good amount of Undead, and they brought kind of a crazy formation here. Oh my goodness, this is dense. So this is kind of the Maximillionaire style we've been seeing. At least I believe Maximillionaire is the one who popularized the Manfred meta. He's great because he has Buna on top of healing, but also he has this amazing item which basically gives him 1,000,000 wins of magic. And that's very good if you find yourself in a blob fight. A lot of people will bring a ton of infantry to try and outcompete the vampire counts in a melee grind. And Manfred kind of completely counters that style, on top of having very good tools against other types of builds. Buna can definitely get a lot of work done here. This huge group of infantry is going to be nice for buying time for Manfred to grind. And for the forces of Slaanesh, we are going to see a Keeper of Secrets. Now, this is usually very scary for the vampire counts. Look at that head tilt. They're usually very scary because they can outduel any singular vampire counts single entity. But Manfred Double White King puts the brakes on this guy. They cannot dive in onto the infantry because if they do, the White Kings are going to countercharge with Manfred. If they stay in the grind in the blob fight and they decide to charge in, it's very risky because there's horrors over here to pin them down. Pretty nice Scab Scrath. Not fully optimal though, but I think the vampire counts are expecting a long, kitey type of game. so they want to put that on cooldown because it does have 3 uses. You want to make sure you use all of them before the end of the game. Capture point is secured. And Slaanesh actually getting a pretty good pick over here. Okay, Hellstriders pin down the White Kings. Exalted Keeper gets the charge and does a massive amount of damage. Usually they'd be doing pretty bad if they were getting hit by Manfred here. But with the support of their units, it looks like they're doing pretty well. Over on the far side, some Fiends find themselves caught up against Crypt Horrors. Not a great fight for the Fiends. Slongor is trying to get some work in, but this is not the best of engagement because we have some Skeleton Spearmen moving in. And the Exalted Keeper acquiesces the White King, and one of them looks like they're gonna go down. Misses one attack though. Very unfortunate considering they do have bonus versus large. 25, which makes them very effective at clearing large units. But it seems like they will eventually kill one of the White Kings. Great thing about the Exalted Keeper too, they have Feasting on Fear. This White King very afraid apparently. At less than 0 leadership, it's actually going to be healing this Keeper of Secrets. And I think one more hit takes him down. But the Keeper of Secrets janking out a little bit. He's not able to get an attack off, cast a spell instead. Is he going to land a hit? Oh my goodness, the jank. Okay, there we go. Force attack command to unjank the Exalted Keeper of Secrets. No, actually trying to disengage with them. Surprising. Didn't finish the White King off, but I guess he's already crumbling. Maybe Manfred can heal him. Maybe it's on cooldown. We'll see. I think that White King's going to die, though. Good slicing shards on the Graveguard Halberds, too. And that's a very nice pickup. Now, the Exalted Keeper does leave pretty battered and bruised. They are bleeding pretty hard. And they can't actually fight even Manfred and the White King if they stick together. So there is still going to be a bit of a tussle, a little bit of a back and forth, but things have certainly evened up. Unfortunately for Slaanesh though, one of the White Kings has managed to survive. Surprise, surprise. With the support of Manfred's leadership, he does stabilize, and that is pretty bad for Slaanesh. Now Valley Trading's still pretty good, and they have managed to get some fairly decent picks over here. On the far side, they've pulled the vampire counts apart, which is going to be very nice for their trading. Slaanesh loves it if they can fight outside of the box. The vampire counts, I'd say, are still pretty comfortable. As long as this hero squad survives, they can bully this lord and stop them from getting value. The thing is, though, by playing wide, they have given some space for this lord to farm value. And Manfred and the 2 White Kings are not really participating. Now, this is still a trade. Manfred can safely gain a ton of Winds of Magic with this Sword of Unholy Power. And that's going to result in a lot of Spirit Leeches for this lord. If the battle does go long, Manfred does eventually kill them. Spirit Leech is kind of the inevitable doom to all lords. But I don't know if this game is going to go long. You can see already 660 tickets for Slaanesh. Oh my goodness, look at that damage. Was that Scabscrath? I think it was. Beautiful Scabscrath on that cavalry blob. But yeah, Slaanesh has almost 700 tickets. That means the game is about half over. And they're going to be getting 120 tickets every minute. So there's not that much time for Spirit Leeches. Maybe Manfred would just barely kill off this lord with that glorious hand over here, Spirit Leeching him. Maybe he'll barely kill the lord before the end of the game, but I don't think he's actually going to... I don't think that's actually going to make him an impact, because if the vampire counts can't capture one of these points, it's just over. Still though, Slaaneshi Lord decides to dive in. Very risky maneuver, as the White Kings are over there. They get a lot of damage, but one does go down. However, it only takes a few hits to kill off this Keeper of Secrets. They're getting supported by their cavalry. We're gonna have a massive single entity fight here. Manfred's kind of getting bogged down though. It's a little hard to see, but a lot of the cavalry over here are stopping him from actually landing hits. He's trying to force himself forward, so I imagine a lot of attack commands. And a big Vargeist dive in does get on top of the Keeper. But it seems like they've landed a good number of hits on Manfred. They're pulling away, and by some miracle, they managed to actually escape. I believe that's because the cavalry over here were supporting. And you are able to move through friendly units easier than enemy units. Friendly units will kind of move out of the way for you. Enemy units tend to body block, and that will bring them outside of the range of these Vargeists. Now they're just trying to heal, but they're at 860 HP. The Skeleton getting finished off finally, and that means Spirit Leech could finish them off. One Spirit Leech drops, and it does about 750 damage. That's gonna put this Exalted Keeper on death's door, and indeed Demonic Crumbling does finish the job. They bite the dust. And that's a very nice advantage for the Vampire Counts. But the problem is, the rest of their army ain't looking too good. A lot of the infantry have died to the high DPS of Slaanesh. And Manfred's not looking too good himself. After the fight with the Exalted Keeper, he can't be nearly as aggressive as he usually wants to be. Now he does have the Hunger, which is going to heal him in combat. But he can't just dive out of this formation. Once around and the guy goes down. He also doesn't have a Wind of Death or anything, so he can't really make use of all of the magic he accumulates to make swing plays. Yes, there's a Buna, but smartly Von Karstein is summoning Fiends, who are very resistant to Buna because of their low entity count. And now Slaanesh is just going for the other point. Not only do they have capture weight here, but they know, hey, Vampire Counts might be able to win by using Manfred's magic. I just want to accelerate the end of the game, and even though I might trade down on point number 3, if I can capture it and end the game before I run out of units, it's still a win. Although alternatively, I will say Slaanesh seems to be ahead enough where they're kind of happy to just take any fights. And maybe by simplifying the game and just taking a bunch of engagements, that can also lead to a win condition. The Mass Zombie Tide does get summoned to try and capture the points. But here's the thing. Manfred's about to go down, and Slaanesh being the fastest faction in the game, they can absolutely just bog down the zombies before they ever put a single foot of capture weight onto these points. Slaanesh only has to stall for a few more minutes. It seems like the Vampire Counts today are going to be suffering. Manfred does heal cap, but he's going to be dying to Crumbling nevertheless. The poor guy falls off his horse, and Slaanesh appears to be taking the victory. Nice match. It's going to be bringing us into the ace match now. I'll say these games have been actually not super one-sided, but we've been seeing clear victors on either end. No super close matches yet, and I do hope to see something crazy in the final match. Maybe some insane builds can be brought out. We'll see. Manfred with the crazy valley, though. White King's also insane valley. Oh, dang, there were Pleasure Seekers here. Not summoned because, of course, Buno is in play. But yeah, Slaanesh kind of just counter the undead, especially the Vampire Counts. Well, mostly the Vampire Counts. So let's see who can advance into the next round of the bracket. The person who wins this will be facing a Maximillionaire, who is the de facto Vampire Counts main. In fact, Michu, I believe, was using one of Maximillionaire's builds earlier. So if they do advance, it would be pretty funny to see the undead versus undead matchup. But this time, in this best of 3, it has finally flipped. Michu is playing the living faction, Norsca. Very strong, very meta faction. In fact, both sides have been playing very meta for this best of 3 series. But what is a little different is maybe this great Shaman Sorcerer of Metal. He's pretty standard, but the Mammoth is a unit you do not see very often. Extremely good at clearing infantry, but not the best at killing single entities. With double White King on the field, they can do a good amount of damage. But they have to be careful. This is mostly a fighting amongst your infantry situation. The White Kings are generally cheaper than this ginormous mammoth caster combo. Prices are fairly similar though. Oh my goodness. I will say these White Kings are taking an absurd amount of damage already from the Riders of the Mighty Serpent. The Javelin Cavalry. And they do insane damage at close range. And already we're seeing some early capture points. This is nice. This will buy Michu a little bit more time to focus on the value trading. Some dogs get summoned. Now they do lose to horsemen. But the horsemen are so important for the Vampire Count's playstyle that they're going to pull away. Because they want to use all of their ammunition first and foremost. Using the Riders of the Mighty Serpent instead. As they have better stats than these guys. +7/+7 melee stats. They're going to be able to push out the dogs. And the Norscans take a very dominant early game position. But any game against the Vampire Counts tends to be very long and grindy. We'll have to see how the battle plays out. Now, actually, I'm quite surprised to see Marauder champions, by the way. Diving headfirst into the Graveguard Great Weapons. These guys are not terrible infantry, but they're quite expensive, and you can see even a Graveguard charge is doing a lot of damage here. Mammoth dives on in to clear out some zombies, and it looks like it's setting up to get a big charge on these Graveguard here. Hey, there we go. Big damage. This is going to be pretty nice. White Kings are going to be moving in to try and punish the Mammoth for moving in onto the Graveguard. This is good chip damage because the Mammoth can't heal. But here's the thing. He already got a very nice charge, and he's just going to fall back into his lines with a good amount of value. White Kings were not able to punish fast enough. A nice play from Michu. Mammoth moving back in, by the way, to maybe try and bully the White Kings. Maybe a little risky, but he's very tanky. A misplay here would only be happening if he gets pinned down. And actually, surprisingly enough, a Frost Dragon shows up. So this is basically Michu's commitment to try and win the single entity fight. Their infantry is not going to be doing nearly as well, because these guys don't really support very much. But oh my goodness, is that a final transmutation upgraded? It is. Drops in the middle of the White King blob. I forgot to check the spells, but indeed, this guy does have a trump card, and it seems on Karstein was not ready for it, as was I. Gets insane amounts of damage on these White Kings. And with the Frostworm, Vampire Counts have basically lost any semblance of single entity advantage possible in this fight. That was insane. As the value tracker goes crazy for the Norscans, this is bad. This is very bad. The White Kings can still bully the Great Shaman a little bit. But with Kemmler so low, he can't really support this fight. He can't use Master of the Dead. This Mammoth with its absurd mass just easily disengages. And even a breath attack here. A little bit of friendly fire too on the Mammoth. But the breath attack, clearing out some of these units. I would say this is going quite well for the Norscans. Dragon even going for Kemmler too. Oh my goodness, the snipe. Dragon does have a slowing attack, which makes it harder for Kemmler to escape. He will be supported by the Crypt Horrors, but we're seeing a lot of critical pieces for the Vampire Counts getting low now. Over here on the other side of the battlefield, White King still trying to hunt the Mammoth, but the Mammoth has so much HP. I think he's going to win this fight. Second White King coming in to try and support. He does miss his attack. The Mammoth does not actually have a lot of base melee attack, and the White Kings have a lot of base melee defense. So without a charge or something, he will be missing most of his attacks. It's kind of a wet noodle contest here. Neither side really doing a lot of damage. But in the meantime, the Frostworm is absolutely beating the brakes off of Kemmler. Which means this is probably going to go the way of the Norscans in general as a trade. The White Kings are not able to pin down the Cold Voider. And Kemmler, is he gonna crumble? -5 leadership begins the crumbling process. Can he stabilize himself? Down to 100 HP. He does have a little bit of healing, but no, Kemmler. He does die, falls off of his horse. A sad day for the Kemmler enjoyers. Although I must say there are not many. Vampire Counts pretty hated. And that's gonna be a solid advantage. Here's the thing though. We did mention earlier the or the Norscan infantry was going to be suffering. And we are seeing a little bit of a vampire counts win on the infantry side. Many of the Norscan infantries getting battered down. There's honestly not much left outside of this one high HP berserker. And the counts could potentially start recapturing some points because of that. You can see they're taking this point. And the Cold Voider does not clear infantry very well. It will kill another White King though, or another single entity in the form of a White King. And the infantry does get beat by the Great Shaman, but he's already at 1/3 HP. He cannot heal. And if he gets low enough, it's just going to be one dragon and a bunch of dead infantry. Vampire counts could still potentially come back here, but they're certainly behind. I think the biggest thing they're going to need to do is try and make a play on this Great Shaman. He needs to overextend or something, because if he sticks around, it's not going to be pretty. He does also have Giver of Glory, by the way, which is a vigor increasing aura, which actually helps all of the reinforcing units here stick in the fight. Cold Voider finishing off this White King too. There was a little bit of a dire pack charge on it. They do have anti-large, but at the end of the day, it's a bunch of dogs versus dragon. And the Norscans pull a very nice victory in the middle. Not only that, they also brought in some magic damage Zinchian chariots to clean up these Karen rates. Very fun. And with the second point being secured and a value lead on the side of the Norscans, it appears they're gonna be winning this one. White King now a crumbling. I believe he gonna be dead very soon. Double cap is secured. Norsca going for the stretch goal, maybe. They might even go for 0.3. Completely unnecessary, though. They do absolutely win on 2 points. And yeah, there's just nothing left for the vampire counts. Honestly, kind of just like a 1-2 punch, these games. You know, the players are just making massive plays on each other. And in game number 3, that one final transmutation just did the vampire counts in. At the end of the day, you know, if you just lose that single entity advantage, things go south incredibly fast. Norsca generally, though, pretty good versus vampire counts too. Von Karstein, of course, by their name, they are a vampire counts enjoyer. But it's still not enough to beat a very disadvantageous matchup. GG. Well played. Michu will be advancing to face Maximilianaire, the de facto vampire counts main. So confident, in fact, that they signed up to the tournament as vampire counts only. And we'll see if Michu is able to counterpick them. They were able to counterpick the vampire counts today with Norsca. I would imagine we might see a little bit more of that. Jeez, that value. That's 3,600. He's more than paid for himself, for sure. And interesting, some units we didn't see. Blood Knights. Here's the thing, though. There was Searing Doom on that caster, too. And you can't really bring Blood Knights into that, because one spell, not dodge, is just going to delete them. Very cool to see the Cold Voider, by the way, too. Dragons are quite uncommon. But they're seeing a little bit of play here and there, which is nice. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Congratulations to Michu. And we'll see how they do in the next match. Von Karstein will be moving to the losers bracket.